This episode is sponsored by Cognito. Cognito is a revision website where you can find all your revision videos and resources, as well as past papers and their own practice questions for A levels, GCSEs, and Key Stage 3. Use my code SHUNTSMedicine20 to get 20% off their subscription, and thank you Cognito for sponsoring this episode. Welcome back to the Medicine with Chance podcast. This is episode 3, and today we're going to be going through the latest medical breakthroughs. I'm going to read you the latest news on medicine, and then we can have a little discussion about what this means for the future of medical practice and the future of medical research. So I hope you enjoy. So first of all, this is a bit of an obvious topic: regulating AI in healthcare. So, AI is this big thing that's been developing over years and years, and now it's developing even faster than ever. And it can automate tasks, as we've seen already, like tasks that are in factories, tasks that are dangerous for humans, and people are suspecting that AI is going to take over some parts of healthcare. So let's see what this is about. So it says the debate about AI in healthcare is no longer on whether we should use it, but on the conditions under which staff and patients can trust it. So that's backing up what I just said. So AI is coming into practice, into medical practice, and probably research as well. So it's saying we should focus our attention on the conditions in how we can use it to keep our patients safe and keep their confidentiality, keep their autonomy, so that we can trust these AI robots. We can trust them to do certain tasks in a hospital without a breach in the patient's rights as a patient, or without being worried about the AI doing something wrong that could harm the patient. So the UK's National Commission into the Regulation of AI in Healthcare, set up in response to the government's commitment to make the NHS the most AI-enabled health system in the world. So again, it could be a bit problematic, could be a bit controversial, but it also could be very beneficial. It depends which ways they use it. Obviously, we're not going to replace the doctors entirely with AI, but let's see to what extent. So, to make the NHS the most AI-enabled health system in the world, drew a consistent message from patients, clinicians, providers, industry, and regulators. AI can improve care and productivity. See, so there's a benefit. It can improve care and productivity, but when I'm reading that, I'm a bit concerned to what degree. Because when they say AI can improve care, does it just mean it will follow the book? Because what if there's a certain thing that goes wrong? Or what if there's two diseases that a patient has? Is the AI able to differentiate what to do as if it was a doctor? Can AI ever be able to do that? Because AI just goes off what it knows online. But each patient can be distinctly separate from one another. One patient could have the same disease as another patient, but completely different symptoms because of something else that that patient has in their genetics that the other patient doesn't have. So that's my concern with AI, with that part, with care. Productivity, I can agree with, because AI doesn't need to take a rest break, doesn't need to have a lunch break. It can just work 24/7 every day. So in those terms, I guess it is productive, but again, I don't know how much people would want to have AIs in their hospitals because personally, I would rather have a doctor treating me than a robot, and I think many other people agree with me there. So if people don't want the AI to help them, then they want a doctor. Maybe that productivity isn't as high as it would be. But only in a regulatory system proportionate to risk, capable of learning over time, and explicit about transparency and accountability. Okay, so here they're saying they're going to regulate the AI to make sure there's no risk, there's no breach of safety, the AI is transparent, but I don't know to what extent, again, how can you make sure that it's entirely safe to be replacing doctors with AI? Because there must be some risks that there's no way really of preventing, like some sort of malfunction in the system. With the NHS moving from small pilots to system wide use, it is unclear whether regulatory capacity and infrastructure can keep pace. Small scale trials of AI supported systems in controlled environments. For example, when staffing levels and documentation practices are fixed by the study protocol, do not match post market implementation environments such as busy hospitals. Okay, so they have tried it out, they have seen how AI would work in certain environments, but again, it said controlled environments. Hospitals are anything but controlled environments. I mean, they're controlled in sense of being hygienic, but if you're talking about everything going to plan and patients coming one at a time, maybe not as much. Especially if you're in A&E, loads of patients, loads of things going on at the same time. I don't know if AI is capable of again treating patients at that rate because I don't know if its processing system can immediately switch from one thing to another without there being a malfunction. I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see, but I don't think the general public and pretty much everyone in the world. I think we wouldn't want AIs to start taking over hospitals. Maybe it would be beneficial to use AIs in countries where their healthcare is not as good or where they're lacking healthcare, then maybe AI could be good for them. But places like the UK and the US, we've got pretty good doctors, so I don't think we need AI anytime soon to replace them. And we've got pretty good healthcare system, although there is problems, and yes, with the NHS and the US system, there is obvious problems. It's still good enough for us to keep our doctors. We don't need these AIs yet. Okay, let's see another article. US policies are making a resurgence of vaccine preventable diseases inevitable. After being prompted in an interview on the 2nd of August, US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that parents should vaccinate their children against measles and acknowledged that 2 doses of the measles, mumps, and rubella MMR vaccine are about 97% effective. Okay, so straight away, if you don't know who Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is, this is very, very different to what he usually says. So, this guy is a person that's running the health, basically running the healthcare system in the US, and he has famously said that he thinks vaccines cause autism. So now he's saying that the MMR vaccine is very good and it's 97% effective, and he's telling people to take it, which is very different to what he was saying at different point in time. So let's see why this is. Just days later, he accompanied US President Donald Trump as he signed an executive order that will require the MMR vaccine to be delivered in separate doses. This order has no scientific basis, will increase pressure on healthcare providers, and by inconveniencing families and sowing doubt and confusion, will also certainly reduce vaccine coverage. See, so that's the catch. I knew there would be a catch with this one because he's very anti-vaccine. So they're doing it in two separate doses for really no reason. Because I know when I got the MMR vaccine, because it's mandatory in the UK, they just gave it to us all in one. So there's no scientific knowledge backing to do two separate doses. So I don't know why he's doing this. Um, it's also going to put more pressure on the health providers, which they already have enough pressure, so that doesn't help with anything. Inconveniencing families, again, that doesn't help with nothing. Bringing confusion, that might lead to people or patients questioning what is this vaccine, because why am I getting two separate vaccines? Shouldn't it just be one? Look over there in the UK, they're getting one version of this. Why am I getting two? Then they might start to doubt the healthcare system. Then that leads to more problems. Public confidence in vaccines cannot be turned on only when an outbreak becomes impossible to ignore, as it has with measles in the US. See? So, this person again, this is written by Tiago Correa, Martin McKee, and Greg Gonsalves. And I agree with them here. Because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been advocating anti vaccine as head of the healthcare in the US, this has reduced a lot of just everyday patients from wanting to get vaccines, because they want to protect their children, they want to protect themselves, they don't want to get ill. So if they hear someone that's meant to be the head of the health department in their country saying that it will cause autism, or it will cause this, or it will lead to this disease, then obviously any normal person would be like, well, why am I gonna take it then? But that's the problem. Those are not true. They're not scientifically backed things to state. So he can't really be saying that, because now these people are not taking vaccines because they're scared, they don't want to get ill, they don't want to get their children ill. And now there's been outbreaks in measles in the US. That's just inevitable. If you stop people from wanting to take vaccines, obviously the diseases that those vaccines protect people against are going to surge up in cases because no one's vaccinated. The US is experiencing a resurgence of measles after it was eliminated over 25 years ago. As of 6th of August 2026, 2,465 confirmed measles cases had been reported in the US in 2026, already more than during the whole of 2025, with 94% of cases associated with outbreaks. Across the country, reported MMR vaccine coverage among children attending preschool fell below the level generally required to prevent sustained transmission. So what that means there, preventing sustained transmission, that's called herd immunity. So if you don't know what that is already, that's when if a lot of people have a vaccine, then the people that are vulnerable to the vaccine and are at risk if they take the vaccine they no longer need to take it because the majority of people are vaccinated, so no one will pass on the illness to them. Or, well, there's a lower likelihood. It's still possible, but a lower chance. So, children in preschool, the vaccinations for them have lowered a lot because, again, like what I just said, the parents are a bit concerned. They're like, well, if Robert F. Kennedy are saying, oh, vaccines are going to cause autism, well, obviously I don't want my child to have autism, so I'm not going to give them the MMR vaccine. And now, because of that, now their children are at risk of mumps, measles, rubella, because of something that Kennedy said that had no scientific knowledge to back it. Among states with comparable data, the largest declines occurred in Idaho, Wisconsin, Georgia, Kentucky, Minnesota, and South Dakota. People do not interpret official recommendations in isolation, so confusing and inconsistent messaging from institutions and leaders is essentially problematic. In March 2025, Kennedy described MMR vaccination as crucial to preventing potentially fatal disease, while emphasizing personal choice rather than directly advising parents to vaccinate their children. See, so there's another catch. He didn't just tell them, oh, you need to take this vaccine. He said, well, it's optional. You don't have to, but you could. See, when you say it like that to people, it makes them think, well, I'm better off not taking it because if I don't have to, then I might as well not put my children at risks or not put myself at risk of associated side effects. In April 2026, he falsely claimed that the US was controlling measles better than any other country. Though he later endorsed the MMR vaccine, this represented a striking reversal after years of promoting the discredited claim that MMR vaccination is linked to autism and supporting anti vaccine campaigns in the US and internationally. Any of his previous support for the vaccine has now been undermined by Trump's new executive order. See, so now because there has been this big measles outbreak, now they're actually having to do something about it, even though Kennedy's like, no, it causes autism, you can't take that. Now they're forced to trace back on what he said because of this big outbreak that's affecting loads of people in their country. India's heat waves expose the gendered harms of the climate crisis. Men can adapt to hot weather, whereas women are expected to cope while conforming to social expectations around modesty and housework. Flashbacks of summers spent in the stifling heat of India, watching the women of my household toiling over open flames in a poorly ventilated kitchen, are strong. They would be drenched in sweat, cooking in the midday heat, dressed modestly from head to toe. In stark contrast, the men of the house could be found lounging under the fan in their tank tops, lungies, or boxer shorts. So what he's saying here, he's saying there's a bit of inequality going on in India. Women have to follow the strict tradition, but the men don't. Why, when the heat is at dangerous temperatures, do the women just have to deal with it while the men can just relax and sit under a fan? Personally, I can't give an opinion on this matter because I don't know enough about it. But it does seem like there's a bit of inequality going on. The climate crisis amplifies existing gender inequalities. In India, where temperatures regularly climb to 105 Fahrenheit, so 40 to 41 degrees Celsius, between March and June, gender norms determine who can call themselves Who works in the hottest environment and who bears the greatest burden of heat related illness? So, heat related illness, that could be heat stroke, that could be dehydration. If we fail to recognize this, action plans for mitigating heat will protect only half the population. Okay, so again, it did back what I said earlier. There is gender inequality going on here. But there's also a bigger problem from those high temperatures. The women are getting heat related illnesses like heat stroke, dehydration, or should I say severe dehydration, which is negatively affecting their health and maybe leading to some being hospitalized just because of an inequality. Okay, so the final article for today, this one is on diabetes. It says diabetes advocacy campaigns should focus on living a life, not fighting a battle. War metaphors have been used in healthcare and medicine for decades. However, for almost as long, commentators have pointed out how this language risks positioning not just the condition as a problem, but the person with the condition, which increases stigma. For certain conditions such as HIV and cancer, messaging has become noticeably more person centered and informative. Yet in diabetes advocacy, the use of battle language is still common. So, what it's trying to get at here is that we need to focus on the words we use when describing people with different illnesses. And we need to reduce the stigma around certain diseases like people with diabetes. Militaristic messaging indicates that we need to fight, combat, beat, and ultimately defeat diabetes. In recent years, the American Diabetes Association, Diabetes Australia, the Danish Diabetes Association, and Diabetes UK have all had campaigns involving a fight. We fight to end diabetes, unite in the fight for change, and no diabetes, fight diabetes. Such messaging is often well intentioned. It seeks to unite and galvanize the public and diabetes community in pursuit of policy changes, improved access to healthcare, and increased funding for research. But framing diabetes advocacy as a conflict is harmful in several ways. So, what it's saying here, why are we saying that we always need to fight something? We always need to defeat it? Illnesses that are chronic, that last your whole life, like diabetes, like multiple sclerosis, these diseases, you can't really say you need to fight the battle because it's long lasting, so there won't be a defeat. You won't be able to cure or completely fight off the disease. Instead, we should focus on living with the disease and living well and effectively and enjoying life with the disease. Firstly, it can position people with diabetes as the victims of their condition, the vulnerable, the sick. A Danish campaign, for example, used the slogan, and then I won't say that because it's in Danish, but it says, "Join the fight to give children and adults with diabetes a better life." This framing casts people with diabetes as passive recipients of other people's advocacy, which undermines their agency. Managing a chronic condition is already a demanding form of emotional and cognitive labor. Evidence indicates that on average, people with diabetes think about diabetes 77 minutes every day. Don't know how they got that statistic. I wouldn't really trust that one, but if they say so. They often plan every aspect of their daily life around glucose levels, which are affected by variations in routine, hormones, physical activity, food, stress, weather, illness, and their use of other medications. So again, it's saying people already think enough about diabetes. People with diabetes already think enough about their condition. People with multiple sclerosis already think enough about their condition every day. Why are we focusing on fighting the condition and focusing on, oh, you're the victim of this condition? Instead, let's focus on how they can deal with it and how to deal with it so that they can enjoy their life. People with type 1 diabetes, women, and those using advanced diabetes technologies think about their condition most frequently. The use of military metaphors risks adding to this mental burden. Finally, framing diabetes as an adversary to be conquered perpetrates the idea that people with diabetes are at war with their bodies and their condition that has often become a part of their identity. How helpful is it to be told you must combat a chronic condition? People who might already be struggling to manage their diabetes amid other priorities will hear that they just need to fight harder, which can lead them to blame themselves and not seek help. That's a good point there. Where it says they would think that they need to just fight harder, it's like you're telling them, oh, if you don't fight harder, it's going to get worse for you. So you're the problem if you don't do anything about it. And that's just not helpful at all. Because chronic conditions like diabetes, like multiple sclerosis, as I've mentioned before, they last your whole life. So telling someone that they just need to fight harder to get rid of it is just not true, and it's not really helping anyone. And then that can lead to people not asking for help because they feel like, oh, well, why should I ask for help? This is my battle. I need to fight it, which is not the right mentality to have. We should let people with diabetes know, let people with chronic conditions know that they're not alone. They should seek help, talk to doctors, talk to friends, talk to family, not just fight it alone and not even use the word fight, not live with it alone, not live with the condition alone. Furthermore, managing diabetes is not a fair fight. Given the vast socio-economic inequalities in food security and access to diabetes drugs, technologies, and healthcare. So, again, that talks about your background, especially say you're someone with a chronic condition from a low income country. Well, you're already in a bad situation. Maybe the only food you can get is unhealthy food because that's all you can buy with the money that you have to survive. Maybe there's no research, there's no doctors on the condition that you have. Say someone with multiple sclerosis in a low income country, maybe there's not enough help in that country for that specific condition. So telling them that you need to fight this battle, you need to do it yourself, is first of all completely taking healthcare out of the system, which is meant to be the one that helps the patient, and it's making them feel pressured, like they need to take up all this weight off their shoulders themselves. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Medicine with Chance podcast, and thank you to the BMJ for where I've got these articles from that I've read out today. And you can find that website at bmj.com/news. If you like to hear more about me, check out my socials, shants_medicine. That is spelled SANS_medicine. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope to see you again soon.